So here's the Kodiak 2011, and I'm gonna go over the Snorkel setup that I just did. I couldn't find a lot of information online because this is a weird year. It's a 2011, so down in the US it's actually a Grizzly 450. So this is a Kodiak 450, which basically the same as the, I think it's 2001 to 2006-ish. So the only difference that I really noticed is that this doesn't have a pull starter, which is really not that big of a deal. It actually is a lot nicer because you're not dealing with that stupid spring on the recoil. So yeah, so I put a Snorkel on the CVT outlet, CVT inlet, and the airbox inlet. So at the back, this is your CVT outlet. I'll grab a view from the other side, but you can see the boot going right onto the block of the engine, and then just water, like spa hose, flexible spa hose. I got it at Home Depot. I've had it for a long time, but so it's just hose clamped and siliconed and then ran around to make sure it's clear of the drive shaft. Then there's this nice kind of pocket underneath the engine block here, and this area shouldn't get too warm. I mean, it's gonna get toasty regardless, so we're just gonna have to kind of run it and see what it does. But then here we come forward beside the heater hose, and then it runs up, and I do have the rad moved on this machine, so that makes a huge difference because I'm able to run everything up through the middle. So here's the one from the back, goes up, and then adapter to PVC pipe, about a 12-inch piece straight up, and then it comes out the top to that left Snorkel, and then just a 90-degree offset on it. And then you're able to see, there's the front. So there's the CVT inlet, same thing, rubber boot, hose clamped, spa hose, running up, and then yeah, another boot, 1.5 to 1.5 PVC, and then same thing, about a 12-inch piece, and then to another 90-degree. The only thing I'm gonna have to watch, because I'm running oversized tires, is this piece right here. It doesn't sit perfectly flush, but that is as far in as I can get it with the coolant bottle sitting there. So we're just gonna, once again, gonna have to just run it, see what it does. I gotta pick smaller tires up for this thing anyway. I got these ones off Marketplace for cheap, so. So in the air box, this is just a piece of rubber hose, same thing, and it bends in and connects to the inlet right there. So you actually have to cut a notch in the plastic. I don't know if you can see it. Cut out a little V on the plastic of the airbox lid, and then you're able to crush it with the hose clamp. So a little bit of silicone on that, a little bit of silicone on the inside to seal it, and then just a little piece of PVC to mate it to this. And then it's pretty straightforward. I will show you guys what I did once the plastic's back on to kind of fit it, but there is not a lot of room. There's just enough to get this piece through, and then it runs up same as the others, the CVTs. Now, if you're trying to do this with a radiator in the front still, it's going to be extremely difficult. For the riding we do a lot of mud, and this is my wife's quad, so she buries it all the time. So we found the best way to keep the rads clean, you can see how clean it is, you can see right through it, is just move it up top. It's easy to clean, it doesn't get buried in mud, it's just a lot better setup. This is just a homemade thing. Don't judge me too hard. I didn't spend too much time on it, but it does the trick. It's not the prettiest thing in the world, but it works quite well. So yeah, so I like kind of the symmetrical aspect because I have Snorkels on my Renegade. So inlet, I think outlet and inlet for the CVT. And it looks nice, all three up, right in the middle. I know sometimes they pump them out the fenders. Now that is something you might have to do if you do have the radiator in the standard place. So, but other than that, that's kind of the run through of that. There's the back view. And And I also extended my airbox drain so that if you're out in the field, well, or out in the mud, whatever, and water does get in your airbox, it's easy to just undo it, let it drain, and keep going. Before, it was too tough to try and reach in there while everything's covered in muskeg or whatever, and you can't get at the drain on the bottom of the airbox. So I just extended it about 6 inches, which we'll have to see what happens, but I think that should work quite well. I have the top off just because I'm putting a new carburetor in it. Yeah, so there's kind of a little rundown. I believe it's 1.5 inch hose for basically everything. You're not going to be able to get too much bigger than that up here because of the exhaust. Now, I don't know if this is going to melt after a few hours of riding. We'll see. I mean, that's the only place I can run the inlet, so we're just going to have to use it and see what happens. I got the gas tank on, the gas tank fairings on, so you can see right on top here where it comes up, you do have to trim out the plastic for this to come up. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's not easy. It is very tight and there's not a lot of room. So, got to trim this in order for that to fit up into here. That's clipped on, and I did break a frickin' clip, of course. Now, seat. Yes, you do have to trim the front of the seat. You're not trimming the actual part where the leather is. You end up trimming the bottom. It's not pretty. I might spray some like sealant or something over top of this foam so that it doesn't get wet, but maybe just some Flex Seal or something. But there's ridges in the seat. Now I don't have some fancy router or whatever, so I did use a hacksaw to kind of trim it out, but you can see you just trim it out right where the hose comes up. It's just enough. Everything touches when it's all assembled. So there will be rubbing on things. It is what it is if you want a snorkel. There's not a lot of room on these machines compared to like a Can-Am. Like the Renegade that I have, the snorkeling was quite easy because the frames are so large on those compared to these little things, but they also weigh probably double the weight. So, I mean, pros and cons. But yeah, so that's on. So I just got side fairings. I'm gonna leave those off to do my testing because I have another issue with the machine I'm gonna cover in a different video, just so these don't get too long. But yeah, and I'm also in the midst of making a lift. So we bought this lift, Perfects or whatever, so it just lowers the shock mounts in the back, which is fine. That works just perfect. I did have to remove the sway bar because these tires are too big, so that's where it bolts in. I don't think that's really going to make much of a difference. Forums say that lots of people do it and they don't really notice much of a difference. So I'm making new brackets. This is my kind of prototype, and it's going to bolt on up there to move the shock mount down, because the kit came with, if I can find it, there it is, a shock spacer that's supposed to go on top of the shock. Now on top of, I'm not a big fan of compressing springs and messing with it. I don't think it'll work because there's too much. It'll be at the top of its travel with this in, and it's gonna make the ride so stiff. So I'm trying a different thing. So I'm not gonna use those. I'm gonna build my own and then try it. We'll see. This is a lot of just trial and error. I'm playing with it, see what it does. It's not like this machine owes us anything, so